mentioned, my name is Sean Doty. I am the customer engagement manager for SmarterProctoring. Joining me today was going to be Claire Skiva. She unfortunately was not able to make it. She is our other CSM with SmarterProctoring. Just her and I. So quick feedback, SmarterServices at a glance here. Obviously, we have been around since 2002. We have served over 1,000 client institutions. We have proctored over 3 million exams at this point. We additionally have another service called SmarterMeasure, which you may or may not be familiar with. That has serviced over 6.5 million students in the readiness space to ensure that they are ready for the next level of education, but also the courses that they are signing up for. Are they ready to learn that and take in that material? Topics for discussion today, as I mentioned, exam creation is going to be the focus. Let me go ahead. This actually bothered me. We're going to talk online versus written exams. We're going to talk passwords and the URLs. Really important to make sure those are on point, but also permitted items, proctor settings, the notes, some tips and tricks, things of that nature, as well as best practices and tips. So the first thing is an online or a written exam. What are we trying to do here? Now, if you are creating an online exam, so computer-based, it is something that is going to be taken within the LMS or a third-party vendor, you are going to keep your exam as online. Now, this may not apply based on your institution if they are currently not allowing written exams to be created. But if they are allowing either online or written exams, this is something that will apply to you. An online exam is always going to have a password access code field and a URL field. As well, if you go down to attachments, you'll notice that it can attach up to 5 attachments, max file size being 4 megabyte. And this is going to require PDF to be used in order for the student to utilize this supplemental information, be it a formula sheet, maybe periodic table, whatever it may be. It does need to be a PDF file. Excuse me. If we are to move over to the written side, you will automatically lose the password and URL field. They are not needed. You will, however, see down in attachments, include all exam materials in a single PDF file. So right now we cannot attach multiple files for a written exam. We also do not at this moment have a randomizer. So if you have multiple versions of your exam, you will need to upload the one that you want the student to take. And this is from an exam perspective. So if you want a student to take a different exam, it would require an accommodation. Moving on, obviously, import exam versus create new. When you click that button, depending on if you're using Canvas or a different LMS, you may see these 2 boxes. Currently, we're only doing import for Canvas users. It is something we're working on for the other LMSs at this time, but it is only going to be available for Canvas. If the exam is imported via the import feature, the information, the basic details that we're going to review momentarily will only need to be updated in Canvas, and that change will be synced over from the LMS to SmarterProctoring in due time. Permitted items, the open and close window, the duration of the exam, things like that are all going to be able to be edited only in Canvas, and it will sync over. Now, if you are using Blackboard, D2L, Genzabar, any Moodle, anything like that, you will need to make these changes both in the LMS or the assessment platform and also in SmarterProctoring so they are aligned perfectly. You will notice on the right-hand side the image that we are looking at. If you're going to import, obviously we do have some restrictions around how to make sure the import goes well. We want to make sure that everything is pulled over accurately because once you pull that over, obviously it will stop you from making any changes within SmarterProctoring. Those changes need to be made in the LMS. So let's go over basic details. When we look at the basic details, this is a page a lot of people are familiar with. It's an online exam. We have the name, duration, password exam URL fields, the attempts, open and close dates, and then at the very bottom, F is our chat support, which cannot be undersold here. It is 24/7, 365. That is the live chat button. We still are able to provide email support if that is just a general question. you're looking to have answered. For exam name, it's making sure that the name is something that you are knowing the student is going to be able to find easy enough. The duration, this is one where when I'm training faculty, we kind of can dive off into the weeds a little bit, but if you're doing in-person testing, your exam window obviously might be a little wider because the students need to pick a date and time in which they are going to test. If you're using a virtual option, be it automated or live or something of that nature, we need to ensure that the duration and the exam open and close date, those date settings are not identical. If we are making it so the duration and the open and close of the exam are the same, we could have a lot of problems. Obviously, with the remote testing, there's a lot of variables that can go into it not going smoothly. And so we really want to make sure that when we look at the open and close date, my rule of thumb is take your duration, multiply it by 3. So if they're testing automated proctoring, things like that, if you have a 1-hour exam, well, your testing window is going to be a 3-hour window. They can take the test anywhere in there. And I realize that's just a general rule of thumb that I instruct the faculty to go by, but it is something that has been worked very well. If they start an exam and they have an hour to take the test, but they have an hour and a half testing window, if anything stops them from moving forward within that first half hour, they suddenly do not have the full amount of time you have given them in order to test. And that could result in a lot of problems for the student, for you potentially having to create an accommodation, more work, and a supplemental test because we don't want to take the same one if they saw that information, anything like that. So really make sure that the exam duration and the open and close dates do not mirror each other. You always want that exam window to be larger, much larger than the duration of your exam. The password and access code, we will cover that more in 1 second. The attempts allowed. Now, typically, if there's only one try at this exam, we certainly are going to just give them one. We leave it as one, either in the LMS, in the assessment platform, and we add that to SmarterProctoring as such. But with the advent of virtual proctoring, it being so popular, and some students having issues, not system issues, but user issues, because as I mentioned, the variables that go into having a smooth test are often out of our control. SmarterProctoring's control, your control. It is all on the student. It is the environment in which they're testing in. Their internet connectivity is a big one. The power at their location, anyone else in their environment, anything else going on around them can cause things to go off the rails. So sometimes I have been working with certain instructors, and they, from the onset, give 2 attempts or more when creating virtual exams, just in the event that if a student has a problem, there is a second attempt waiting for them. But they also have a condition within their course that if a student is going to use that second attempt, they first have to get permission. They cannot just go use it. They're going to want to know, okay, hey, I had a power outage. I lost it during the storm and I was testing. I wasn't able to finish. Can I use the second attempt? Whatever the details may be, they can still look at the first session. Was it, okay, yep, it just dropped. Or were they cheating and just they exited out of everything very quickly? So it is conditional upon what happened during the first session. The open and close date, as we touched on, want to be larger than the exam duration. You want to make sure that you are putting in enough time so they can begin the test and utilize all time given possible. And what I did not mark is the scheduling window. It's optional. This is only going to be used when in-person testing is offered, or and really it is built and it was needed to combat procrastination when scheduling. It's for those students who would wait till the 11th hour, try to find a spot at the testing center or with whomever proctoring vendor that the school is using, and they come back to you saying, I can't find anything. Well, when we waited till the last possible minute to schedule the last possible time for that exam, it certainly creates a problem because now we need to make accommodations. We need to extend testing windows. It requires reaching out to the vendor to see if they have any additional seats they can open up. It's more work for everyone. With scheduling window, you can know your midterms coming up the second week of March. For the first to second week of February, we can set that scheduling window up. So they would have to go in over those 2 weeks, take 5 minutes, schedule their exam, and they're good to go. Any failure to not schedule within that scheduling window would result in the student not being able to schedule, and they would have to come request an extension on that, and obviously let you know why I was not able to schedule, if there was an issue or if it was just purely procrastination that caused the issue. Again, if you have any questions or clarifications about what I'm talking about, please feel free to put those into the Q&A, and I will make sure those are addressed. So exam passwords and URLs, let's talk those. So as general rules of thumb, you always want to try to use as secure of a password as possible for your exam. The standard practice applies: lower uppercase letters, numbers, special characters. We do not want to use the same password for any of our quizzes or exams that we have in the system. We did see that a little bit, just because sometimes you get those passwords that are very easy for you to remember. But as we put them in, students, some of them are tech savvy, and if they understand how to go and kind of inspect the computer, they can look at the code on the page. Obviously, it is storing everything, things like that. The more tech savvy students find ways to get passwords. We have been doing a fair bit of work to combat that as well. But we want to make sure it is as secure of a password as possible in order to make sure that your exam is secure as possible. Now getting to URLs. This is where we get a lot of questions. We use McGraw-Hill, we use Cengage, Pearson, ours is in Canvas or Blackboard. What link do we need to put into that URL field so we navigate the student to the proper place, or they're going to go to the proper area to test? Deep linking versus single sign-on, what to use and when. If your institution is currently set up, or your course is set up to use single sign-on, that is where the student will go every time in order to access that third-party vendor's website or their platform in order to do their assignments, any readings, anything that they need to do. That is where you will send them to access the exam. They will click on that single sign-on link, and then they will access the third-party vendor system. If you use a deep link and you are still using single sign-on, that will create a problem with the student having access. The student's access to that third-party system is through that single sign-on link. It is not any login information they have when they get to the login page of that third-party vendor. So you want to make sure if you're using single sign-on to get into Cengage, you are sending them to that link in the LMS for this exam. That is how they access that part of their system. If you're not using single sign-on, a deep link is going to be far and away the best option because it gets the student right to the exam. That is not to say you can't just send them to Cengage.com and they will navigate their way to the assessment. That can be done. But again, we want to make sure we're using as specific of links possible instead of just general URLs, so the student has to try to navigate there. Sometimes they know where it is, sometimes they have no idea, so they will get to the login page and not know what to do. It's the same with if the assessment is in the LMS. We don't just want to send them to Blackboard or Canvas or Instructor, whatever it might be, and have them navigate through. They may not go to the right spot. That will cause delays, frustration, and additional stress. So getting them as close to the button, take quiz now, start session, whatever it may be, is going to be the best bet every time. Next page we see after we do those basic details are permitted items. These are very easily toggled on and off. As you can see, just right-hand side, just click it. They are default off. This is going to be a list that the administration has reviewed. Whatever is there for your faculty is what they can turn on and off, offering their students during the session. You will see the additional fields open up every time you turn on one of these permitted items. It is very important to be specific. You do not want your students just think, oh, I can use notes. I have a whole 200-page notebook filled with notes. I'm going to use that. Now, odds are they won't be able to read it in time for a 30-minute quiz to get every single answer, but specifics will matter in this instance. Every time I train, I use the same exact one because it is what I received when I was in one of my biology courses back in the day, which was a single index card with handwritten notes, 3x5 index card, handwritten notes on only one side. I still had to study all the material that was going to be covered on that test, but it became a weighted game of what am I not fully grasping? What do I continually have a hard time with? Or there's just too much to understand about this section. How small can I write legibly in order to use it as an aid? So specifics matter. Additionally, as you go down the list, you might see something like websites. We are not whitelisting anything. If you toggle that on and put in that website address you want them to go to, and only that one, that unfortunately is not how it's going to work with our system. But it is something that with the virtual options, as we'll see in a moment, we will make sure obviously is logged, and there is going to be an annotation for that. Now, the very bottom one, and this applies to not so much in person because it can be controlled, but the virtual options. If offering a bathroom, if it's a virtual test and you offer a bathroom break, that is up to you, as it is your exam or your faculty's exam. Totally fine. It is your prerogative there. But it is not something we recommend, as we do require the students sitting in that seat. As you can see me, or not anymore maybe, but you'll be able to see the student the full duration of the exam. And we will, from a Smarter Proctoring perspective, be able to tell you, yes, there was cheating that occurred, or 100% certain, no cheating did not occur. It was a clean session. I would recommend only using them on an accommodation basis or for emergencies, based on if the student has a medical need, obviously staying safe and so on. We want to make sure that the students are not putting themselves in harm's way for a test ever. But again, these will be dictated based on your exam, what you want to offer the students, or what your faculty want to offer the students, in order to have their assessment run as smoothly as possible. Notes for students and proctors. One of the most important areas, again, you do not need to use both sections. If you are using testing centers, live proctoring, hybrid virtual proctoring, anything with a real individual that will be working with the student on their exam, utilize both sections, notes for students and notes for proctors. If you're using only virtual options, automated with review from Smarter Proctoring, you only need to use notes for students. We have told our AI system what to do when it comes to notes for proctors, so nothing is going to be needed there. The notes for students field, and same with Proctor, if you're putting information here, it can be high level. Just, hey, do not cheat, or no cheating. Good luck. Very simple. You can get as granular as listing out what you expect from them. All electronics, watches and phones moved away from you. Please make sure that you are only using the permitted items. Please hold up your hands and you show your back and your front of your hands, wrists, and arms if you want to do that during the room scan. One other thing that comes up is if you want to help the student, a little bit of guidance. It's 10 questions on this quiz. Please make sure to read question 8 very carefully. That answer is going to determine what comes out of for questions 9 and 10. If you get 8 wrong, you will get the following 2 wrong, and that is a bulk of the scoring points for this assessment. And so little tips like that can go a long way. As a rule of thumb, though, and it's just a best practice, we're going to try to keep this as short and specific as possible. You don't want to end up with a small, short story inside each of these fields. The students tend to see a lot of content, as you may know. They don't read it. So we want to make sure they're aware of their expectations. They may already know them from the school's honor codes and course codes as well, but this is just good, helpful information when they go to take their session. Same with the proctors. What do you want us to focus on when your students are being proctored? What to identify, what to look out for? You know them better than we do, and obviously with this assessment possibly being a very important one, you want to make sure that everything is covered. Ooh. So proctor settings. This is the final page of the exam creation. And when you're setting these up, each proctor settings page is going to look different based on the institution. This is from my demo account. So we have a number of different testing centers, individuals, virtual proctoring options to go off of. As a best practice, if possible, I say if applicable here, always provide options. So students do not feel like they are stuck on a single track option in which they don't like. And if the school does make available different options, might as well give it to them. It could be beneficial. Obviously, stemming from the Cleveland State ruling, where that student only had a single avenue to test. There were a lot of things that went wrong there, but there was only a single option when they could have had multiple. So if you have the ability to open up different settings, it is always recommended to give the options for the student, as long as the test gets done. I think at the end of the day, that is most important, but ensuring integrity of that test is also right up there along with that. If you're doing virtual, obviously I have automated proctoring right here. Always ensure only one screen is enabled right here. These two monitors right here. This setting is going to ensure that, much like my setup, I have my laptop and multiple monitors. It is going to make me disconnect my additional monitors and only work from one screen. When you are virtual proctoring, that one screen is going to be recorded, and anything that student does will be seen during their session. So as I mentioned, if you are not wanting them to go to certain websites, we can always make sure disable new tabs is turned on. But if they need to access the resource center in your course, for example, or the course of the faculty, that will be something that they need to have access to. And it also allows them to also navigate away if they so deem it. Now, if they are going to Google or Wikipedia or whatever other page they know that their notes are on, we will be recording that and seeing they're navigating away from the assessment and not going to the resource page. They are going somewhere to cheat. And so that will be recorded and flagged for during the session. Finally, some tips and tricks. When creating an exam, if applicable, multiple attempts from the start is going to be very helpful from a virtual standpoint. If they lose power, if they don't have a good internet connection and they can't get their onboarding or they can't finish their exam, that second attempt can be very helpful in not making more work for your faculty members or you yourself. We want to make sure this is as smooth as possible. And I have had instructors begin to do this. Just as remote proctoring and internet connectivity, it's always something that has to be taken into account. Publish the exam when it is created in SmarterProctoring. I realize that's sometimes not possible as we create it in SmarterProctoring so they can schedule their exam, but the exam itself may not actually be created fully yet till later in the term. Totally fine. As a rule of thumb, then we want to make sure that the exam is published at least 24 hours ahead of the open date of the exam, making sure that we're also not going to change anything about it because of the details that go into that exam when it comes to SmarterProctoring. Permitted items, anything like that, those get locked in when the student schedules. We do update them, but sometimes depending on when they schedule and go to start, the update, they may hit that gap and it could cause problems for something they may be using that you don't want them to, or that you've offered them and they are not going to be able to use it because it was not on the list. Additionally, going back to notes, be specific when inputting permitted items and notes for students and proctors. It will be to your benefit to make sure that you are very precise when talking about notes or earplugs. When it comes to earplugs, foam only, nothing Bluetooth. Obviously, with the Bluetooth headphones, they are very small. They do not blink. There's no lights on them to let you know that, hey, this is active or on right now. It is something that we very much want to make sure we are addressing. And again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to our support team. You can reach out to your admin or me. We can always set up faculty trainings to walk through these kinds of things and make sure everybody is as versed as possible. There was a question I want to make sure. Are the virtual settings for SmarterServices virtual options only? Yes. So if you are using ProctorU through our system, they are a partner of ours. If you are going through our system and utilizing their automated process, this will only apply to SmarterProctoring. If you are toggling on that third party via third party option for live proctoring or live proctoring remote, they will have their own settings that are going to be accompanying that. Resources. So as I mentioned, you're going to get this deck. We have a main resource center. We have a resource center for instructors, admins, students, everything you need to have in order to create your exams, manage exam sessions. If you're using our automated from SmarterProctoring, doing practice tests, things like that, what goes into that. But also it's making sure that the students are as prepared as possible when it comes to virtual testing or any testing really, making sure that they have done the work to ensure on test day, the only thing that they should be worried about is the exam and the material that they should have studied, not smarter proctoring or anything like that. So please utilize these links. Again, though, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, support fully back 24/7, 365. We have live chat for students and faculty. Your students will have access to the chat button from the time they go to schedule, onboard, test, after, all the time. They will always be able to reach our SmarterServices support team. Faculty as well, if you have any questions when creating the exam or have questions about a session, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are happy to help. The nice part about our live proctoring, switching to that, is if your students are currently utilizing live proctoring via SmarterServices, if there is an issue and they reach out to support, we are able to talk to our own proctors in real time and let them know, don't worry, we're helping the student you're proctoring, so everybody's on the same page. There is no gap. Obviously, with our third-party partners, ProctorU and such, we have to send the message to them. Hopefully they get it. There isn't a termination of session. They understand they're getting the help they need and we're able to move forward. So having everything housed in a single vendor is allowing us to much more quickly address issues and make sure that everybody is on the same page. And that is all I had for today. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Claire. If I'm your account manager, by all means, just send me that question. Happy to help. But any other questions or clarifications that I can provide when it comes to the exam creation process? I'm going to allow everyone to talk until just so we can unmute, and that way you can ask a question. All right, well, I hope all of that was clear and concise. If there is anything else I can help with, please let me know. As mentioned, you will get a copy of the recording and this deck post session here. But thank you very much for joining me this morning and allowing me to walk you through the exam creation process. I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend as well. Take care.